Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I was really excited because when I got home, I saw this package. Well, if I can reach it, saw this package at my door and knew exactly what it was. It was my 2024 Hayabusa hooks order. When it comes to most of my sponsors, usually I'll do like, maybe an order to start the year and do smaller orders, throughout the season. But with Hayabusa, I know exactly what I want. I only use a certain number of different types of hook designs. And so I can pretty much order my entire order and know exactly what I need throughout the year. So I wanted to walk you guys through what I order every single year as far as my hooks. Because like I said, I keep things simple. Even with the baits that I use, I don't tend to be that diverse as far as the different brands. Like in each category of lures, I generally will have like 2 or 3 different, brands or designs that I really lean on. I will experiment. Like if I want to be able to like find something new that I can add to my arsenal that I really, really like, and that fits like a gap in the arsenal. But I also want to keep things really simple. So that's kind of the principle that I use for my hooks and these orders. So let's get started. Just want to show you guys what I use as far as Hayabusa hooks every year. And we're going to start off with treble hooks, because treble hooks trebles was the category I was really excited about working with Hayabusa on, because obviously treble hooks, man, I feel like I go through way more treble hooks than any other type of hook, just because, when you're cranking, when you're using crankbaits and you're just grinding rocks and shell and things like that, your hooks go bad constantly, really, really quick. It doesn't matter what brand it is, you're going to wear those hook points down just from making contact with structure. So, I was excited about working with a brand that I knew had a really good treble hook, and to be able to keep all of my hard baits, rigged up with the best hook points possible. And so Hayabusa has the TBL 930. It's a round bend treble hook. And they actually come in 2 different versions as far as the overall finish on the hook. You've got the traditional like black nickel finish. It's a classic. It's got a really good color that blends with a lot of different baits. And overall, I think it doesn't really, it's not very obvious to the fish. So, clear water situations, this can be a really good option. However, more and more over the years, working with Hayabusa, I've started to switch a lot of my baits, my hooks, over to the NRB coated version of the TBL 930. And the NRB coating is essentially, the best way to explain it is it's like a Teflon-like coating on your hooks. And so one thing that people don't think about is the fact that it's not like hook penetration has a lot to do with the sharpness of the hook point, obviously, but it also has a lot to do with the friction of the material that the hook is made out of. So if you have a hook that just has a lot of friction, which just feeling it, you wouldn't be able to feel much, but on a microscopic level, there's a lot of friction there. That's going to reduce your hook penetration and increase the amount of force required to get that hook point into the fish's mouth. And that's why the NRB coating is so good, is because it has that Teflon-like coating on it that decreases the amount of friction, which in turn decreases the amount of force required to get the hook point, set into the fish's mouth. So that's super important, more so than any other category of hook design. It's super critical when it comes to treble hooks, because a lot of these baits, man, a lot of times they're just swiping at the bait. The fish aren't necessarily like gobbling it down, choking it down every single time. Sometimes they just kind of swipe at it, and you still want that opportunity to get that hook point into or around their mouth. And so the NRB coating has, to me, especially during the coldest months when the fish are less active and more likely to just swipe at a bait, the NRB coating has been something that I've really liked about these treble hooks. So these treble hooks are pretty awesome. One of the things that I've noticed about the TBL 930s is that they kind of like found the perfect spot as far as the diameter of the actual hook material, the wire. It's you know, for the smaller hooks, it's like perfect. It's not like gonna weight down your jerk bait or something like that because it's too heavy, but it's also not too thin that you're gonna straighten them out very easy. So they found like the perfect spot when it comes to you know, the how heavy or light duty the hooks are. They're kind of like right in the middle. So that's one thing I really like about it too, is like when you go up to like a size 2, you know, that hook right there is as strong as you're gonna need with any, you know, treble hook bait. And then when you get down to like the 6s or, you know, even smaller, that's when you want one that has that kind of like medium light wire on there, which they do good. So all right, so that was the treble hooks. Do a bunch of those because I'm constantly swapping those out. So I do, you know, quite a bit. I fill up one of my tackle boxes, my hook, or it's really my treble hook box, just packed to the brim to start the season off. And, you know, I go through it. You know, if I'm fishing a tournament, there's no way that I want to fish a tournament, start a tournament day with dull treble hooks. You know, and so I'll change out the treble hooks on baits that I know I'm going to tie on, and then also the baits that I think I might tie on possibly at some point. So I go through treble hooks like crazy, and these are great ones. All right, so the next hook that I order is the 957, the WRM 957. These are in the NRB coating too, because I really like it in these. These are kind of a medium, moderate wire offset shank hook. So just a traditional gap offset shank hook. This is a really good just worm hook. You know, it's just a straight tail worm or a ribbon tail worm, any type of worm that has a kind of skinny profile that works well with just a traditional offset shank hook. That's what I'm going to be using the 957 with. You know, so some of my favorite baits include like the mag fatties. Those work, even though the mag fatties is fat, it's still pretty thin, and because it's a Laztec, it also compresses really good. So that gap works perfect with it. You know, finesse worms, anything that's real skinny. You know, it's a generally skinny worm design. So got some of those. Usually I just get 3/0, 4/0, and 5/0. Those are the only sizes that I usually use. I've got some from years past that get into the 7s for those really big, like 11-inch ribbon tail worms and stuff. But generally 3s, 4s, and 5/0 are gonna do the trick. All right, so the next category is gonna be Wacky rig hooks. Okay, I've got several different designs that I actually use. This one's actually my favorite, the WRM 201. I like this hook because I feel like the wire diameter is just the perfect size for most of my wacky rigging. Like, I'm generally not going to be fishing a wacky rig where I need like a super heavy line or a super heavy wire hook, but I'm also not going to be using a super light wire hook generally. They make a very light wire wacky rig hook, but it just doesn't fit my style. I'm not going to drop down to like 6-pound test with my wacky rigs. I'm usually using like 10 or 12-pound test in most of these scenarios when I'm throwing like a stick bait during the spring, which is when the wacky rig generally comes out first. But the WRM 201 is like the perfect wacky rig hook for just open water. And so this one is my favorite. And usually I get anywhere from, I got up to 3/0 this year, but usually, 1/0, 2/0, those are the sizes that I like to use on a regular basis. A 2/0's a pretty good one. The next one is also a Wacky rig hook. It's called the Special Wacky WRM 920 or 62. And this one is a little bit different as far as the shape, the overall shape of the hook. Let me see if I can put these two together. So the 201 is like just more consistently round, and it has a shorter shank. So there's a shorter distance between the eye and the point. And the Power Wacky, or the Special Wacky here, it's got slightly longer distance between the eye and the point. And it's just overall just a little bit different design. I really like it. I can't tell you that I why I would use one over the other, because honestly, you know, it's whatever I pick up next. But I do feel like in a lot of situations, because of the design of the 962 having like that straight portion, you know, where you've got the bend of the hook and then you've got the straight portion right here, I feel like it locks the fish in a little bit more. So if I feel like I'm losing fish for some reason on the Wacky rig, that's one of the situations I might go to the 962, because I feel like it locks them in just a little bit more. But the 201 is still kind of the old classic for me. It's a little bit, you know, it's about the same actually as far as the wire thickness and the strength of the hook. So it's kind of that medium wire overall. So both of these are really good. 962 and the 201, they both work really, really good with all those Wacky rig baits that you're going to be throwing. And yeah, the next one is actually a play on the WRM 201, but it adds a weed guard. And I am not a fan. I've tried the ones that have a metal wire as the weed guard, but I'm not a huge fan of them. And the reason why is, like, if I was a fish and I chomped down on a bait that had, you know, that thin metal wire, like I poke myself with those thin metal wire type brush guards, and I couldn't imagine, you know, a fish chomping down on it and not getting stuck with it. So I feel like, you know, if the fish eat it, you know, the wrong way, they could get stabbed by it. And I always feel like I miss a lot of fish with it. I think that that's the reason why, is they chomp down on it, they get stabbed by that wire, and then they spit it out. That may be completely off base as far as like what's actually happening, but that's just what's going on in my head. And and also, you know, the fluorocarbon ones, I feel like just don't show up as obviously underwater. And so this is the fluorocarbon brush guard version, and I like it. I feel like it bounces back better, so I don't have to constantly like you know, rebend it back into shape like a wire one would do. And I just feel like it's just less likely to like give the fish a cue to like spit it out or something like that. It's definitely not going to poke them, you know, like wire ones I think might do. All right, so that's the Wacky rig hooks that I use. Obviously, you know, the ones that are open like the 962 or the 201s, those I'm going to be using when I'm, you know, fishing most situations with sparse or limited cover. And then, of course, the fluorocarbon version of the 201, I'm going to be using around slightly denser cover, you know, where I expect to get snagged a little bit. So as far as drop shotting, I keep it really, really simple. I love the DSR 132. Again, this is a light wire hook. It is a really sharp hook, and the DSR 132, man, it is, when we go up north for smallmouth, this is an absolute killer. And I go pretty small, you know, like a size 2 is you know, fairly big for me. Size 4 is actually a really good size for you know, going up north and fishing smallmouth. But I get just a variety of those between, you know, size 2 and 6 is kind of what I stick with. But these are just really good, high quality, and the perfect light wire design. All right, and now we get into, this is actually a Swimbait hook that I really love. This is the WRM 958, and this is the weighted version, as you can see, and I have the NRB coating on there. I generally don't like do a whole lot of lighter weight swimbait fishing. So I'm impatient. I don't want to like have to like slow roll a bait, so I don't do a lot of that. So generally I'm going to be using like the 6/0 or 7/0 and get like the 1/4 ounce, the heaviest weight that they've got, because I'm usually fishing this with like a Z-Man diesel minnows, the 5-inch version, or some other type of 5 or 6-inch swim bait, and I just want to be able to cover water with it. So I generally use the heavier weights that they offer in this, but it is a great swim bait hook. Usually the only mod that I'll do is if I'm fishing in a Laztec bait like that diesel minnows, I'm going to take off the corkscrew, and I'm going to do that customization that I do where I take the spike off of the T spins, and then I replace the corkscrew with that, and that works perfectly with the Laztec. Really, really good mod that allows you to use the Laztec with these type of hooks. But these are really good. I use them quite a bit here on Chick when I'm fishing those minnows, or the diesel minnows. And the next hook series I get a lot of. I get a bunch of these because this right here is the core of my worm hooks. I use these like crazy and go through a lot of them. So this is the Hayabusa 959. If you guys have seen me do a lot of videos talking about hooks, this is the one that I use the most. The Hayabusa 959 is a heavy wire EWG style hook. So all of my flipping, pitching, and punching, I don't use straight shank anymore, as you guys know. I use EWG, just a straight polymer knot, and it works good with any of those creature baits or those wider body like beaver baits and things like that. We're throwing a turbo fatties, swimming a worm, any of that stuff. That's what I'm going to be using with the Hayabusa 959. And since those are techniques that I use a lot whenever I can, I go through a bunch of these. And the thing I love about the Hayabusa 959, and I do use it in the NRB coating pretty much exclusively, is the fact that it's super strong, and I just get such a good hook set. Or, I get the fish hooked in places that they're just not coming off. That's one of the reasons why I like the EWG design, is that when I set the hook on a fish, if I'm flipping and pitching a soft plastic, it's gonna get stuck in their cheek. And their cheek is the best place that you could possibly hook a fish. A lot of people, tend to boast about a straight shank hook, hooking them in the top of the mouth every single time. What is at the top of their mouth? It is not just solid muscle. It's a little bit of skin and ligaments and stuff like that. And then you've got that skull. You've got all that bone. And what happens when you're fighting a big fish and the hook is in bone? It just wallows out this big hole, and it's more than likely to be able to come out. So the top of the mouth, to me, is the worst place to hook a fish. Pretty much, in as far as like in the mouth, because it has the opportunity to end up, pulling back through the hook or the hole that was kind of wallowed out. But the cheek, when you hook a fish in the cheek, that muscle is not going to allow for any like wallowing out. It's just going to hold that hook, and they're going to get in the boat. That's the reason why I go back to the EWG and the 959. Is because it hooks them in the right places of the mouth. So I don't know why everybody's a fan of the roof of the mouth, but to me, it's the worst possible place to hook a fish. And so that's why EWGs are so good. The 959 is just a solid all-around hook. Man, I thought we had one more big hook design here, but that's it. That is essentially all of the different hooks that I use throughout a year. As you can see, I keep them simple. What we got here? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different hook designs, and that covers literally all of my bases. Now, of course, I've got other jig heads and things like that that I use for swim baits or for like Ned rigs or some other, you know, shaky head or something like that. So I've got plenty of other terminal tackle that I use in different situations. But as far as just straight worm hooks, I know I showed you a weighted swim bait hook, but as far as just straight worm hooks, I keep it very, very simple, and it works for me. So that is what I ordered this year from Hayabusa. That's what I'm going to be fishing with throughout the season. I doubt that I'll have to really pivot and go to any other hook design. I know that over the last like 4 or 5 years, I really haven't had to do that. So I don't expect to do that this year. So if you guys have any questions at all, make sure that you drop a comment below. You know, thank you guys so much for all the support recently and in all the videos that I'm doing and all the feedback that I'm getting. The channel is growing, and I really just appreciate you guys so very much for taking time out of your days to watch, you know, my content. So if you have any content ideas or topics that you'd like me to do a video on, make sure you drop a comment below. Other than that, support the channel by sharing, and subscribing. I'm going to see you out on the water. Take care. Trust the process.